also, I want to focus on audience engagement. Either for people who have never been exposed to theater before, which is like always my quote unquote target audience. But then also what can make theater exciting again for the first time, again, and working with the senses or from the ground up, or without the idea that I'm going to have a venue or resources. So y'all know my format, audio, in the form of an audio play.
Gotcha, okay. So using probably the form of an audio play to structure it, you're trying to create a theatrical experience that is focused as much or more on the audience engagement, on a sense of excitement and joy in theater, as much as or more than the particular content or story or event for real. It's about our ability to receive that. Is that?
Yeah.
What I'm hearing?
And I guess ulterior motive. Not now.
No, not yet. No, let's
Okay,
get.
yes.
But you still want to follow up. Any follow-up questions on that? Okay.
How would you?
Oh, go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
How would you be able to assess the audience engagement in an audio play?
I would like to offer roles to people who just would be interested.
So it's live.
Yes and no. So I'll preface by saying this. During the pandemic, I actually got connected with a group of artists in different fields, different mediums. I presented this idea of an audio play. These people have never acted before, like, whoa, what's that? And through a series of Zoom rehearsals, I was able to kind of teach a method of acting, which is why I was so excited about that conversation. And then also have them participate in the play, the audio play. So this is how I would engage, either through that or offering the final product for free, like put it up on YouTube or like something that if people couldn't get exposed to theater in any other format.
I'm confused about the audience engagement. Like, the actors aren't part of the audience, or you consider them part of the audience?
Well,
When
I've never done a stage reading before. Yeah, I've only worked in that format. So I guess thinking like say that I was to announce, and I have more about like the event itself. So say that I was to announce like, oh, I have a play that I want to do, and potentially people who could work on the play or just be an audience member. But I'm more so turning like either like social media followers or that network into incorporating them into working in the production. Does that answer? Does that? Maybe not audience.
Yeah, that seems a little bit different from what I would call audience engagement.
Sure.
It seems like.
Sure. And the audience engagement more being more so focused on just the possibility of it.
It almost sounds like developing a community, or like that's what it sounds like to me.
And that's the goal. Right. Where it's more about the production of the play.
Yeah. Which is good community building for sure.
Cool. Oh yeah.
Other questions? Get it? Yeah.
Okay. So you said that you want to make theater exciting again. What do you think has been lost from theater that you're trying to re-engage with?
A thrill for new and original narratives. Not like a remix or like a hip hop version of Shakespeare, but rather the excitement that comes with a new narrative, either that utilizing like social media tactics like TikTok promotion or utilizing methods such as interviewing everyday people, utilizing their stories into an original narrative, things like this, that people who aren't exposed to theater can either see themselves in theater or see a need for the art form in their day-to-day life.
So not necessarily new, but just not what we consider like traditional theater.
Sure. Yes.
Oh yeah, I have my younger brother. I don't want to ask him a question. I think it's too leading.
Okay. That's good. Okay, so the idea is to sort of get at a lot of what we're hearing, right? It's like, who are you, how are you coming to this work, and what work is this work doing, rather than like, what platform is it going to be on, and what happens
Right.
in the second act, which we all are doing really great, right? But sort of getting it, like, also to be stimulating stuff maybe you haven't.
No, for
Yeah,
sure.
go ahead, Deborah.
So, I guess I'll just ask this simply, but like, how would the narrative be created then? Like, if you have,
So
sorry, go ahead.
no, and this event is going to be a broader, or maybe a more evolved version of something that I did back in, or last year, where I am working on and using this program to create a form or a method of self-devising. I call it mythologizing. It'll probably change. So to use memory recollection and in an interview style, I did it on myself first, so I interviewed myself. I'm fine, don't worry. But and took an experience, something about losing my childhood home. And I asked myself a series of questions. How did you feel? Who were the people involved? If you were to write your own script utilizing this, how would you have wrote it differently? And so I used the method of mythologizing to first inform myself that I'm no longer there, so I don't need to hold on to these emotions, feelings, but if I want to get over it, or if I want to maybe take a nugget away from it, that nugget would be, okay, life goes on, or you can only do but so much. How could I then draw that into a story? And so thinking of how the Greek myths were created, and whether it was to describe the human psyche, or and this is why I'm very fascinated with fables and indigenous folklore, what was the point, or whether for yourself, how do you get yourself out of a rut? But I would use the method of mythologizing, which I'm still coming up with, especially to interview other people. But for other people, and this is a hope of mine, for them to find their own mythology or their own virtue and principle, whatever gets them through. Or so yeah, that's my method. And
sorry. For mythologizing, are they taking their stories and making them something bigger, or are you trying to stick to reality?
Making it something bigger. And yeah, no, thank you for that. That's the entire idea, to make it something bigger than themselves, than that person. Again, I'll just use myself for example. The audio play series that I have on YouTube called The Institute Pursuit was about my first year here at the program. And so kind of using these like confusing moments of like, oh, like, and this is personal, like to say like, oh, these professors are out to get me. Well, what is something that I grew up with, or that my grandma like told me, like laugh through the pain, something like that. So to make fun of myself, I turned this play into a parody of myself, or like a satire of what I've been through. And it deters from reality, sure, but it also points back at myself, like, okay, like, why were you even thinking, like, how do you even think of yourself, or how do you look at yourself? Why do you think the world's against you?
So you're asking for very reflective in the narrative.
Yeah, and especially on those memories that we'd much rather not think about.
Great, really good. Any burning, because I so we can move on to, since we think you have another?
One more.
Okay.
So asking, because you're going to interview other people, are you concerned at all about asking people to delve into like harder things in their life, given that you don't have like a background in psychology, and sometimes things that are brought up might be more serious things that they're dealing with, or like, do you have a plan for how you might want to deal with that if something arises?
Well, always just sticking to my original intention, which is to create a personal story from their experiences, whereas there might not be a narrative written out for going through the pain of divorce, or the pain of, I'll just use that for it.
Yeah, but like,
Can I just because it's a good model, right? So, thinking dramaturgically about our framing of questions, I would invite you that there's, as in one other question before, there's a decision implicit in the question already, right?
Okay.
And a kind of judgment, and it is inviting a I would say that formulation invites a defensive
Okay.
response, right? It's sort of saying like, I've identified a problem,
Uh-huh.
and how are you dealing with the problem? Can you elicit a similar thing in a way that asks from a more open-ended way and still pursues your query, right? Like how can you ask him like?
Yes, I'm
Not
trying to
re-
think of
re-
how to
like,
reframe it.
I think sometimes a how versus a whether
Okay.
can sometimes be, right? How are you planning to deal with weather? Like, what are you going to do when people or if people, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It just has one. Is that okay?
Yeah, no,
And
thank
it's not-
you,
I mean,
thank you for pulling that.
Yes,
I
yes.
didn't, I
It
didn't
just-
realize, so I
yes,
apologize.
it was,
if
and,
that came
this is
across
not
that way.
judgment on you. It's only like, oh, that's a great example of a place where I can model, right, a dramaturgical approach. To keep this open for the person is to try to, yeah, can just to do this little exchange. Is there a way to do that?
Hold on, I have to consider.
No, sure. And I can't tell the future, and obviously I don't have expertise in psychology, and this is why I'm using this method on myself first. And I'll say that.
Yeah, and I think one of the values at this stage of the discussion, right, of the most open-ended question, is it allows the most space for I don't know. Right? What you want to discover are the places you don't know yet. That's what we're getting at in this, right? That's what we're aiming for. Not, I've already solved this and I've already solved this and I thought about this and I have an answer for this and I know the platform and I know like what audience engagement exactly means to me. But where are you finding the places where like I'm not sure yet? So what's great, right, is if you can pose that and say like, you know, how do you imagine you might have the conversation if it brings up something really uncomfortable for someone or whatever it is, right? Like how are you anticipating managing the framework or making people feel safe? Oh, I hadn't, like, I don't know, I haven't thought about that, or there's something I'm still figuring out, or right, or that could have anyway, right? So you don't have to feel like, yes, I thought about that, whatever, right? It's like just anyway. That makes some sense. Makes some sense. There was something in Deborah in your question too, with just a little tweak, similarly, but it's just anyway. We can keep. I want to keep rolling, and there'll be plenty of other examples, and I don't mean to. Sorry, to sort of take over.
No,
and
that's fine.
ventriloquize it, right? But
I would like,
but-
that's why I would like to do stuff like this, to
exactly
point
that's-
out those
yes,
fallacies,
Yes, that's
so.
what I want to be sure, and not whatever, just refining, right? Like that's why I'm jumping on it. Okay, so maybe moving ahead into this was great, and there's all kind. We could also just as thoughts, and with other people there are other ones, but we could say like, what's your creative routine now for like how you are iterating this or evolving it, or what are you moving on to next now that you've done it on yourself, right? Like just big open end, right? We could ask things like, or what is something that excites you about this? What is the biggest obstacle you still feel like you're facing? We could do that kind of stuff to get thinking about, right? To just sort of help you get unstuck. And if we were really taking time, we would then pursue each of the, right? We would offer ourselves dramaturgically to walk that person through. Right now we're just getting, okay. So sensory, what are some, yes, what are some like sensory triggers we might want to invite? Like, can you tell us associations that we might want to invite Jamal to think of the work in it? Like, well, it's a very heady exercise, right? I mean, it's very emotion based, but it's still a very heady account in your mind. So can we help get at things like touch, scent, smell, color, taste, right? All those things genius. Like, can we get visceral?
I would like to know the feel of it.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Texture or emotional feel?
No,
Which
like
one? Texture.
feel, like.
Great.
Like if you could hold
Tactile.
it, like if you could hold it
Nice.
in your hands, what it would feel
Boom.
It would
There's
get
a
away
question.
from you as quickly as you think that you could grab it. It would go away from you.
like. Water.
Yeah.
How would you describe that?
Or like a zippy balloon,
Mm,
or a bubble, like a
Nice.
sweet, you think?
like you think you can, but it's gone.
Mm.
What else?
Are we talking about the play itself or just the whole process?
However you answer.
Okay. Mm.
What kind of music informs
Mm.
the work?
It's gonna be music.
Okay.
It's gonna be very like elevator, what you hear in the clothing department store, like.
It's vivid.
And because I want to work with up and coming producers who probably, I don't fit in this genre, and I'm speaking from experience of which I've already done before, like these kind of more ambient sound. So it sounds like something in the background that can inform or bring out that emotion or what's being told in the narrative. I usually work in that way.
I have a really weird one. You know when you close your eyes and like there's all the fuzzies and it's sort of like indentations of things that you've seen before?
Yes.
If you did that after seeing your show, what would it look like?
Oh my gosh. It would look like you. That's what I hope. I hope you see yourself.
You said bubble. Is there an object that you would either associate this with, or that you might use or bring in or have be a part of? Is there something you attach to this, an object, an item that is sort of core to this idea?
I haven't gotten there yet.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
What else? Other sensory.
What's it smell like?
Damn it.
There you go. That's
I wanted to
super
smell.
super mnemonic.
I wanted to smell like comfort food.
If you put it alone in the woods, would it make its way out?
No.
Oh. I get it. So smells like comfort food. Taste? Anything?
It doesn't taste like anything.
Okay. Taste, you okay?
Oh my gosh.
Is there a kind of a color palette for this? Like even if it's like an emotional
Yes.
version? Yeah.
Every story will be a different color. Because this
See?
is going to be a series of plays.
Uh-huh.
And in the first series was just all of my kind of personified memories turned into story. And this is going to be a separate series. So that series, and not to get too wordy, sorry, but that series was called Lost Dogs Chase Tales, as in like tales like a story. And then this series is called the Tales Spin-Off series, which is going to be a series of plays that are inspired by screenplays.
Okay.
And yeah, so every story I would like to give off a different
Mhm.
color, a different
Great.
hue.
Great.
As in like the chakra system, as in the
Mhm.
colors of the rainbow, as in associating colors with different parts of the human psyche.
What about the temperature?
I want it to be on the spectrum. I want to provide like like between like hot and cold.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So maybe like the first play being like the coldest or the hottest, and then the last one being the coldest. Like I want there to be like a clear spectrum if you decide to listen to them in a row.
So if I can then jump it right, like, and then maybe we'll roll on. If this is good, we could even roll on to a word cloud.
Sure.
But just to make sure we get space for as many of you as we can get in.
Oh, yeah.
Right, but I think so. Some of this clearly we're finding places where you have a pretty well formulated idea. I feel like some of these are encouraging you to put a name to a thing in, right? Like, ooh, the temperature would be it, right? But
Yeah.
also, if we were to progress forward, or as we progress forward with Jamal, we have a frame of reference, right? There's a continuity here of this idea of multiplicity of many stories, right? Sort of space for everyone. What would I see? I would see myself. Each of us would have our own experience of this thing, but there's sort of as many stories as there are people. Audiences engaged in making it. It's a community event. That this idea of sort of it has a different taste and different flavor and different color each time. It's a rainbow. It's a Skittles bag, right? There's like a continuity, and then testing for that, right? Like making sure we might need to push on you to make sure it stays open and doesn't retract into just like Jamal is this way. It's like interesting. My follow-up questions would be less determined by who and how are you at the center of this.
Mhm.
How does this reflect Jamal? It starts to be, I take those questions off, right? And it's more at how are you working to get at, in a supportive and safe way, what the individual generating collaborators bring, right? Almost like, right? It's like that starts to be this like, ooh, how do you, like you're shaping the occasion, but you're doing less to shape the thing. As opposed to with some of you, it might be more about like, okay, so like how does this work relate to what you want to say in the world? I don't know. Does that make sense?
It doesn't
Yeah,
have
yeah,
an
yeah.
answer.
Right, so like we start, you sort of tell us what the questions and the next ones would be. All right,
Okay.
super quick, like word cloudy stuff. Let me get and if you want to write some of these, what are we hearing? If that's useful to you, what do you want to just bounce back? What do we get? Either really striking images or recurring. Go ahead, Michael.
Mythologizing.
Yeah, I was gonna say that
Mythologizing.
one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
it's a
Yeah,
headliner.
that's-
Together.
Reflection and engagement.
Nice.
Community.
Yeah.
comfort.
Nugget.
Ooh.
Mhm.
All right, can y'all slow down?
No.
Thanks. Got it all.
Audience. was one I had. Or audiences, I think you even said plural, which is great.
Can we use
Original.
words that are not in? Like we haven't, we can't.
No. Not words that made you think of. That would be a different.
Oh, okay.
That is one you could use, right? It's like, here's what you made me feel. But we want to be a little more invisible
I
here.
got you.
It's gonna be
Community.
Hmm?
Community.
Community. Yeah. Community.
Original narratives.
Hmm. Great. Memory.
Event.
Engagement.
For sure.
Bubble.
A lot of versions. Bubble was great. Deborah? Any others?
So we already said memory, but memories. No.
Maybe even more important. Questions was a big one I had. No, that was one I had. Questions.
Right.
It seemed like it was a lovely core idea or principle there. Cool. Any others? Anyone?
Fun.
Oh, yeah. I had exciting. Someone might have said that already, but exciting, which goes with fun, I think, to me, right? Like, I love that. Like, that was very palpable, wasn't it? Like, and that went with like the Muzak thing and the comfort food. I was surprised, right? Because you talked about the pain, whatever. Like, I don't know, just sharing for a second. Like, right? It's sort of like,
Thank you.
I had to kind of revisit my understanding and make changes. Like, okay, great. Let me meet you at that place. Like, this is about like re-engaging our sense of fun, and it's like fun and playful and surprising and not taking yourself too seriously. And that's really interesting. Okay, cool. Okay, fantastic. Let's roll on. 'Cause we're only fantastic. All right. Someone else wanna
Let's go.
take the hot seat?
Oh, it's nice and hot now. Y'all should go
No.
sit on
it's-
it.
If
Come
no one,
on,
if
it's
no one
good.
gets there.
Go. Then
Go ahead while it's hot.
Well, I was like, there's someone who probably